What did you find out about your friend's sex life that actually shocked you? Submitted by Throwaway 42,042,069,666. That when house sitting for us, he and his wife fucked in every room of our house and also on my motorcycle. Found out half of my friend group were regularly having foursomes together and rudely not inviting the rest of us. A friend of mine thinks of me while having sex so they can keep going for much longer. My roommate broke his bed one day after coming home with his girlfriend. Pretty ordinary so far. That happens, although already quite funny. Then I remembered that I helped him build his bed up when we moved in. Dude's bed has 2 slatted frames. How the hell did they break that? My friend had anal sex with her boyfriend for 5 years before having vaginal sex. She was too scared she would get pregnant. I have nothing against anal sex, but it totally shocked the hell out of me. Well, I found out he likes hosting gangbangs. He invited me to one, too. My wife had a female friend in high school that saved all the used condoms in a brown paper bag under her bed. And from what I heard, there were a lot of themes here. Best friend in HS was casually seeing this dude who was a senior our sophomore year. Well, he graduated and dumped her. Next year his brother started HS. She proceeded to date him this year. Took both of their virginities. My best friend never masturbated until I told him the experiences of the luxury. Then he actually did it and he questioned his life. That she had elaborate pirate roleplay sex. We were housemates in college and I heard way more than IBARR gained for. Also, the guy she had elaborate pirate roleplay sex with smelled bad and wore those shoes with the separate toes. My best friend in college got in a pretty kinky sexual relationship with this dude for a while. They do BDSM type stuff, none of which is particularly shocking to me. But I remember visiting her apartment and seeing a spoon out randomly in her room and asked why it was there. She said she loved the taste of his cum so much he'd jerk off onto the spoon and feed it to her while she was tied up. I didn't think she'd ever really shock me, but that one took the cake. This guy looked and acted like your typical alpha male but was actually a virgin. I think because he was overly confident to the point of being a douchebag that turned women away. My best friend's boyfriend apparently has such a gargantuan penis that they can't really have sex in the traditional way. They find a way to have fun, but he has to settle for handjob. It was hard for me to have a conversation with that guy after she told me that. Edit. Oh boy. I wasn't expecting this to get attention. I just had to text my friend and tell her that I told a ton of people on the internet about her boyfriend's huge penis. My sister's involvement. I needed her laptop because mine wasn't working. Never thought she, the most innocent girl I've ever known, would be into gunplay and knife play. I'm hiding all my knives in my swabby. He posts himself and his girlfriend to Pornhub and Reddit NSFW that he was having sex with my fiancé. After several years I found out that one of my female friends wore a strap-on and fucked her husband up the butt almost every time they had sex. I don't remember how the topic even came up, but apparently that was just how he liked it and she was happy to oblige. He said that when he was 20 he did try it with another man but didn't really find any enjoyment in it because he likes playing with tits while getting plowed. So he only likes it when it's coming from a woman wearing a strap-on. That they eat ass despite being a germaphobe. One friend had sex with another friend because of her people started calling him Anaconda Dick. That she lets her girlfriend sleep with other people, but it's not an open relationship both ways. I guess if that was a straight relationship it'd be like a hot wife cuckold setup. Her girlfriend's manipulative and she's often upset. Not surprisingly. I have a friend that's a massive player. I'd not be shocked if he said he slept with more than 100 women. Turns out he's thinking of switching teams with me apparently. Went over to a staunchly conservative Christian friend's house for a party. During the festivities he had disappeared, so I went to look for him to take my leave. Found him in his room with his best friend, watching gay porn. My exact words at that moment were, "Well, that's certainly something I thought I'd never see in all my life." He slept with a clown. A friend of mine came out as asexual. I had never met anyone who was asexual, so I asked a lot of questions, within his comfort level, about what that meant and what it's like to be in a relationship. He said he just doesn't have a sex drive, doesn't find anything sexual, doesn't want to be sexual, and is otherwise completely indifferent to sex. He said even though he's had sex, he's felt this way his whole life. He's been with his girlfriend for over 5 years. She is not asexual. She sleeps with other people. He's totally fine with it. He's not interested in progressing the relationship. She's cool with it for now. His biggest thing is that he's scared of how his family would react if they found out, in that they would assume he was just suppressing homosexuality. Turns out even people with no sexuality are still afraid of what others will think of them this year. 2 of my friends used to date and, due to martinis and cider, I now know exactly how big he is and how long she can hold her breath. I married at 19 and moved across the country. My best friend at the time of my wedding was still a virgin. 2 years later, during conversation on the phone, she tells me she took part in a sex train during a party and ended up fucking my married brother too. I don't judge her, but it did shock me because she was always very reserved through high school. Ooh boy, this is a fun one. So my friend decides to tell our whole group that his now ex-girlfriend asked him what his favorite game was. He said Rainbow Six Siege. She looked it up and asked him who his favorite characters were. He said Mute and Caveira. She asked him for $100. He obliged. Sometime later she invites him to her house. He goes there and all the lights are out. The whole house is empty. Suddenly, something jumps from out of nowhere and tackles him to the ground. He looks up to see his girlfriend, in full Caveira cosplay, holding a butter knife to his neck, demanding to know where his friends are. She then motions his sight to a chair nearby that has a Mute costume and a pack of condoms. One friend was all into gangbangs and orgies. Never took her as the type. A friend, coworker, was caught with BDMS kiddie porn. I did my first hit of acid with him this year. Makes me wonder if we ever truly know someone. That he even had a sex life. In his past relationships, as far as I knew, he'd only ever kissed, but I come to find out with his current GF he's done practically everything. He'd been lying about it for months, saying they hadn't done anything, and then one night with friends and the GF spilled the beans. I suspected they were doing some stuff, but it came as a hilarious shock when I found myself getting sex advice from him all of a sudden. Friend wouldn't let me use his computer approximately 20 years ago. He said he had things on there that would change how I thought about him this year. I stowed the thought aside. 12 years or so later, married with a young daughter, they threw his ass in prison for having some insanely large amount of child porn on his computer. He was part of some huge child porn ring. Evidently really young girls. My friend only do anal because she's saving her virginity for her husband. She has about approximately 5 BF up to this point. Not much that's shocked me. I have some rather eclectic friends. One's a professional dominatrix. Others are swingers. Some have participated in gangbangs and orgies, filmed porn, etc. I've seen photos and videos casually shared over drinks like, "Oh, this camera guy caught me getting railed by my husband at this party. Here's a video. He was into swords and getting cut and stuff." She wanted to join my partner and I in bed. My friend has a fetish for being choked, but she's very quiet and shy, so yeah, very surprising. A former friend of mine used to wipe her husband's butt after he'd been to the bathroom this year. Initially she'd do his washing and he'd leave stains on his underwear. For her? I'm not sure. And that progressed to some humiliation in her checking him when he got home from work every day. She told me this when we were outside having a cigarette and I then had to sit across from them, both for the longest game of Monopoly. She lost her anal virginity while I was in the next room. A woman I dated previously moved back home upon finishing grad school. She lives on some sort of free love commune estate. She has 10 husbands. My friend told me she likes to be spit on. An old friend and I were discussing different kinks and interests that we had when she asked if she could tell me one without judging. I said of course, as I'm pretty open-minded. As long as it's between two consenting adults, I don't give a shit what you do. She then proceeded to tell me she likes to be beat up as in punched in the face, kicked, spat on, etc. I was definitely shocked, but I pretty much said you do you. Boo. I still give her shit about it every once in a while though. Face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy. That his GF doesn't enjoy having sex with him. My best mate, unless she is really drunk, never brought it up, but the implication is a bit rough. My friend was U.S. Army, Special Forces, Green Beret, and would go on regular, shadow fucking dates. He would find people online, mostly on Craigslist. This was in the 2012, and set up random, anonymous sex liaisons with people he had never met, spoken with, or had even seen. He would show up to an unlocked apartment or house, fuck in the dark without ever seeing or speaking, and bail. One day we were playing Xbox. He got an email. Said, "Don't unpause it. I gotta go fuck real quick." He left, did the deed, and brought a 6-pack back all within an hour. Sat down and kept playing. This happened a few different times and I think about it often. One of my close friends, who would herself say she is a prude, has a massive being forced to do things fetish. He was into baby play. Many years ago, I had a work project. I was project manager, and we had subcontractors on site doing the work. This crew included a young married couple. He was their project manager. She ran the on-site lab. Found out about halfway through he project they were swingers. I guess I wasn't so much shocked as surprised. They'd been married less than a year at that time. I always figured swinging for something longer married couples did to keep things fresh, not something relatively newlyweds did.